What's going on, guys? It's Flaws, and in this video we're going to be talking about weapon and utility choices and how that's going to affect the different ways that you can actually play out the round and how those can enhance your play style. So let's get right into it. The easiest way to win games effectively without even having to take 50-50 gunfights is if you just know more utility than the opponents, or you're just throwing effective utility for your team while they're hitting a site, it's a lot easier for them to actually get those trades off of people that are playing close up on them on site. What you can do on even just a site of Anubis, just have one of your teammates throw you a smoke right here, just back up into this wall like this. And you can slow down the video if you want, but you pick up that smoke right there, you throw that first one, throw this, throw a Molotov off that. It's a very quick set to throw, it's very easy to throw as well, and then you just know that that's smoked heaven, backside rotates smoked, and this is mollied for the kind of stairs peak. But all they have to clear when they come up into the site is this close pillar, back sight, and close left. All they have to do is clear those three angles. There's 4 people clearing it, so it should be a little bit easier altogether. And then they just take the site. All you're really doing is throwing nades and sitting back. Like, it's one of the easiest jobs, and it's one of the worst jobs when people don't do it correctly for your team. But if you have someone that's just throwing the correct nades, it's so much easier to hit sites, and your team's just gonna love you throughout the entire game. Now let's talk about what to buy. Starting off on pistol round, I'd say most of the time you're just gonna get the Kevlar and vest. If your whole team does buy that though, what you can do is just kind of play behind them and get maybe a smoke and a Molotov. Most of the time, if your team hits a site, they're gonna get it on T side on pistol. If they don't, I mean, tough luck, you're probably not gonna use your smoke or molly. But what you can do for after plant, or even just hitting the site, is throw maybe a lineup that goes over. If you see someone that's deep CT here, you can just throw something like that. Maybe you have 2 alive, and it's just against this one guy. Now he has to jump through a smoke. You can play close up on it. Your team can be on the other side, and it just gives you a little bit more room to move around post plant, which is really nice. And this is 20 seconds on the smokes, just keep that in mind. So if the bomb's been planted, you throw that 20 seconds off of the timer already. So that's a really nice thing if they wait behind that. And if they don't wait behind it, you're at an advantage again. Same thing goes for Molotov at the end of the round. It's a lot harder for them to defuse when you have this in your hands, and that's 7 seconds to just push them off the bomb. I mean, that's a huge advantage to just not peek. So you throw that on top of the bomb, don't peek for 7 seconds, you just listen for footsteps, see what they're gonna do. So just kind of keep that in mind when everyone on your team is buying Kevlar. Like, it's not always just the best to just copy them. It's usually better for at least one person to have at least a Molotov or a smoke just to help you get the site, maybe a flash instead. But on CT side, it's kind of similar. Just make sure you have at least one kit, and it really just does help on the retake. When we talk about finding a playstyle, it's kind of based off of your rifle round when we're talking about that. Most of the time, you're going to have one opper, one rifler, which the rifler just is behind the entry. So an entry, a rifler, an opper. Then you're going to have a support player, and then you're going to have a lurker half the time. Sometimes you're not going to have a lurk, especially in pugs. It's usually not worth it to lurk because, one, your team doesn't really know how to entry most of the time, and if you are lurking, it's not even worth the headache of just listening to them complain about you being last alive. So going off of that, if you're not the op player, which I think the op player could be one of the most beneficial to every single game, so if you get good at opping, just kind of be the one to first buy it. If you're not the one to first buy it though, just let someone else have it. Don't worry about it too much, just pick it off their body when they die. But that's like a normal rifle round. When we go to the first couple rounds of the half, if you lose the round, just make sure you always stay above 2k if you're ecoing for the next round. If you buy too much, then you're not going to be able to buy a gun for the next round coming up, which is just not worth it. I think the P250 is a great option. It's only 300, and it does a ton of damage. It's just 2 headshots, or 1 to the head, 1 to the body, which is a crazy thing for $300. It also is, I don't know, one of my favorite guns to use on an eco round. The Tech 9's good at range. It's also good while you're moving, so keep that in mind if you're going to be rushing something with your teammates. The Deagle is one of the best guns for an eco round. It's also one of the most difficult ones to use, so keep that in mind. Now we move to the second round if we won. I think the MAC-10 is always a good option. If they have no head armor, just aim for the head. You can also kind of run and gun this one as well. The P90, I think it's just too expensive. Just kind of keep that in mind. Like, you could do the same thing as the MAC-10. It's just maybe if your aim's not the best, go for the P90 instead, and you can just run around and spray more bullets. The UMP does a little bit more armor pen, but I don't really think it's worth it most of the time. Shotguns, if you're the worst player in this game or you're the best player, you can always find a good place to use the different shotguns. I think the XM10 is a lot better than the Nova, but That's just my opinion. You can also buy the Swag 7 on the other side, on CT side. It's actually called the Mag 7, but for rifles, the Galil has more armor pen than the M4. So keep that in mind. It's always nice if you're on CT side. It actually might be worth it to pick this up if they're going to be buying armor the next round. AK is just kind of the bread and butter of the T side. Scout, same as the op. If you can't afford an op and you know they don't have armor, it's a one shot, so keep that in mind. And the SG, I wouldn't advise using this. It just kind of makes you worse at the game, and it's not really worth it at the end of the day. But that's just kind of my breakdown of what guns you should buy for your playstyle. Now let's go over to the CT side. On the CT side, it's not much different than the T side. The MP9 is kind of similar to the Mac 10, but it's a little bit different because you're playing passive. You're not really rushing with it as much. But it's a really good gun to just have like for movement on the site. You can also push through smokes, or you can take an area with your team with this. You're going to be like the first entry if you guys are entering from CT to take an area. FAMAS is always a good gun. It's a little bit less expensive than the M4, A4, or the M4A1S. But it does actually have a very effective use in a lot of rounds. It's not a bad purchase, kind of similar to the Galil. I think the FAMAS is just a little bit better if you can actually use it. XM10, this is always a great gun to buy as long as your whole team's not using them. But same thing goes for the T side as CT side. If your skill level is not the best, you can always use this gun. Even if you're like very talented at the game, you can still use this gun, aim for the head, get a bunch of kills in each round if you're playing close up. Mag 7, kind of similar. It's a one shot to the head. I'd say just play close areas if you're using this, but keeping that in mind, it's pretty much the same thing as the T side. Anyways guys, thanks for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like down below, and if you guys want to see more videos like this, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.